Almost Twins by Mark Fielding Darden. Chapter 9. The Indian Rock and the Magic Beach, 1966. Several years after the shark wounds had healed, the twins went on a horseback ride up the beach in a westerly direction. Though Georgie often rode alone, this time he asked Geoff to go with him. Eliza was out of town, so Geoff had plenty of free time. The coastal area west of Punta Mala is rocky, with beaches spanning between successive points. At rare times during the year, extreme tides occur, allowing passage around rocky points that are normally underwater. As the Spaulding estate faded into the distance behind them, the exceptional low tide that day allowed the twins to work their way around a final point on the coast. There, in the near distance, was a very high, rocky cliff. It was impossible, however, to ride around this small mountain, and from their vantage point, the cliff seemed insurmountable. But they were 16 now, and quite strong physically. Georgie could have made it up the hill alone, and did so many times later during his life. Each boy was bronze in color, with almost white sun-bleached hair. "Hey, Geoff," yelled Georgie, "let's see if horses can make it up side of cliff." Geoff responded with a, "Heck yeah," and off they headed up the looming hillside. The rocks were placed such that it was a tricky job coaxing the horses up the steep embankment, but eventually they made it to the top by going far to the right and then coming back down the hill to the point. What they found at the edge of the cliff was amazing. It was more than real. The vegetation was low and brushy, and as the chaparral thinned and they crested the hill, the boys spotted a large, flat rock that seemed to be balanced on the top edge of the cliff. The rock was not visible from any other point. The entire hilltop was a mysterious place because of its great height above the ocean. They tied their horses to some bushes and then crept towards the edge of the rock. It was a long fall to the jagged boulders and beach below, and the ledge they were on looked sacrificial in nature, as if Indians had been there many times in the past, for that very reason. With the wind blowing at their backs, almost pushing them off the ledge, it was a spooky, eerie moment for the twins. They felt so small. This was indeed a holy place. It was a real Indian rock. The Spaulding twins were so excited to find such a secret spot that they sat there for a long time in total silence, taking it all in. It was one of those "holy cow" moments that every kid goes through, maybe once in his life, if he's lucky. "Hey, look at that," blurted Georgie, to which Geoff replied, "Wow, isn't that cool?" Looking down over the steep cliff even further to the right, they spied a rocky bottom and a narrow beach with a tiny animal trail leading down to it. They edged their way along the flat rock to the drop-off and looked down for several minutes before speaking again. Both boys knew they had to get to that beach. After surveying the hillside, they carefully slid down the animal trail to the cove below. It was a very long drop to the bottom. Georgie's foot was a hindrance, but he had learned how to use it almost as well as when it was whole. The cliff was enormously steep, and the boys had no clue how they were going to get back up. But down they went. As soon as they got to the sand, they stripped off their shorts and headed for the water. Already shirtless, the boys were a crazy sight. With their matching red underwear, blonde hair, and brown skin, they ran straight towards the water. This beach was different than the one in front of their home. It was a very small beach, and the lagoon in which it was located was quite shallow with no big waves. The water was clear, turquoise blue. There were no sharks, or they would have easily seen them. "I'll beat you," said Geoff as he took off for the water. "No duh," said Georgie, as he pogo-sticked his bad leg, then good leg across the sand. Still, both boys hit the water at about the same time. It was warm and safe. They splashed around in their matching red checkered boxers for about 10 minutes, and then looked back at the land. Towards the cliff they had just descended, they suddenly saw a waterfall hidden in the bushes to the left. "Holy cow," Georgie said. "Let's go look at waterfall." Geoff was enjoying the surf, but could not stop his brother. Both bounded out of the salt water and headed for the waterfall. When they arrived, they were completely surprised by a clear, spring-fed pond at the bottom of the falls. "Pure, clean water," Geoff said. "There's nothing like fresh water after you've been in the ocean. It tastes so sweet." And both boys drank deeply of the cool spring. The pool was actually quite deep for its size. They swam across it to a mossy rock in the sun near the base of the falls. Pulling themselves up onto the warm boulder in the mist, they looked back across the waterhole to the magic beach beyond, stretching left and right, and then way up into the air to the Indian Rock. There were large, razor-edged stones all around, with gorgeous ferns and orchids growing everywhere. The boys were only inches apart and still breathing hard from the run to the falls, when Georgie whispered in a low voice, "I like this place, brother. Feel like home." Geoff, mocking his brother, said, "You got that right." Geoff turned and looked at his brother and gave him a little hug. They knew each other so well. Geoff realized, of course, that his brother was slow, and Georgie knew that he was slow. It was being twins that caused such a deep connection. It wasn't just that Geoff had saved Georgie's life that day from the shark, and it was more than coming into the world seconds apart from the same mother. It was a deeper understanding, as if each could slip into the other's mind and see what only God was supposed to see. The boys would often be seen talking to each other, even when there was only one boy present. This was especially true of Georgie. In a way, Georgie had also saved Geoff's life that day on the beach. Remember Georgie's hidden problem? Georgie was challenged in his output, not his input. His imagination was never slow. Chapter 10. Up next.